Okay, so get this. You know how we're always on the hunt for those hidden treasure stories? Well, this time we've got a real doozy.
A real-life gold rush.
Uh-huh. And it's a massive one. Get this. The estimated value is a mind-blowing 78 billion euros.
And the exciting part is that this isn't some ancient legend. This is happening right now.
Right now, in China.
Yeah, in Pingjing County in Hunan Province, to be exact. It's called the Wangu Gold Field.
And the Wangu gold field is, well, it's kind of changing the game when it comes to gold discoveries.
It really is. And it's not just about hitting the jackpot, striking it rich.
Yeah, it's way more than that.
It's about cutting-edge technology, how it's being used to find riches buried deep, deep underground.
Yeah, and what that means for the world.
Right, exactly.
Right.
It shows us how much our understanding of the Earth is changing and our ability to access the stuff hidden down there, the resources.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole treasure trove thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the geologists from the Hunan Geological Bureau, they didn't just trip over this gold, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, not at all. They were using some pretty intense tech, deep core drilling.
Deep core drilling. How deep are we talking?
They went down 3,000 meters.
3,000 meters. That's insane.
Yeah. And then they used 3D geological modeling.
To, see what's down there?
Yeah, to create a detailed map.
Of the gold veins?
Yes, the gold veins.
And get this, geologist Chen Rulin, who was on the team, he said they pulled up cores, rock cores.
With visible gold.
Visible gold?
Uh-huh. Actual gold flecks, just shimmering in the rock. That's how rich this deposit is.
That's wild. Just imagine that, pulling up a rock and seeing actual gold in it.
I know. And some of the samples, they had 138 grams of gold per ton of ore.
Wow. And that's, what, way higher than normal?
Much higher. In a typical gold mine, you wouldn't see anything close to that.
Okay, so we've got visible gold, crazy high concentrations. What's the total estimated amount?
Initial estimates say 1,000 metric tons of gold.
1,000 metric tons. I don't even know how to picture that much gold.
Think of it this way. 1 metric ton of gold is about the weight of a small car. Now imagine 1,000 of those cars, all made of solid gold.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot of gold. But, I think a lot of people listening are probably wondering, how do they even find these massive gold deposits? Is it just luck?
Well, there's definitely some educated guesswork involved, and science, of course.
But it can't be just looking around on the surface,
Yep,
right?
not in this case. The gold was hidden way too deep for traditional surveys.
So deep core drilling and 3D modeling, those were the keys.
Absolutely essential. Deep core drilling, that's what allows geologists to actually get samples from deep within the Earth. They pull up these long cylinders of rock called cores.
So it's kind of like taking a biopsy of the Earth.
Yeah.
We're getting a sample to see what's going on deep down.
That's a great way to put it. Then you've got the 3D geological modeling. They take the data from those cores, combine it with other geological information, maybe things like seismic surveys or magnetic readings.
And that creates a virtual model.
Yes, a 3D model of what's under the surface. That's how they can see those gold veins, with incredible detail.
Wow. So it's like they have X-ray vision for the Earth.
Exactly. Liu Yongjun, the deputy director of the Hunan Geological Bureau, he actually said that the 3D modeling was crucial for them to pinpoint the best spots for gold exploration. It's a total game changer.
It sounds like it. Finding a needle in a haystack suddenly got a lot easier. But okay, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about what this massive gold find could actually mean.
Well, this goes way beyond just finding a bunch of gold.
Right, because something this big, it's going to have ripples.
Absolutely. Local and global.
So what are you keeping an eye on?
Well, first, locally. For Hunan Province, this could be huge economically.
We're talking jobs, right?
Thousands of jobs, not just in the mines themselves, but all the industries that spring up around them.
Refining, transportation.
Manufacturing, all of it. Hunan Province is already a big industrial center, but this could really take things to the next level.
Yeah, it could really change things for people there. But we have to talk about the downsides too, right? Any large-scale project like this, there are going to be concerns.
Of course. We'll definitely get into that later, but for now, let's zoom out a bit. Look at the global impact.
China's already a major player in the gold market, right?
No, absolutely. World's largest producer and consumer of gold.
So this could really cement their position.
And give them more influence globally.
Potentially. It's definitely something to watch.
Okay, so with all this new gold entering the market, what about prices? Could they go down?
That's a tough one. It's not always a simple relationship between gold supply and gold prices. You've got global demand, you've got investor sentiment. Even geopolitical events can play a role.
So predicting the exact impact.
It's tricky, even for the experts. But one thing to remember is that gold isn't just a physical commodity. It's also a financial asset.
So it's not just how much gold there is, it's how people feel about gold. Exactly. It's a safe haven asset. When other markets are uncertain, people turn to gold. That psychological factor is huge.
So this discovery,
Yeah.
it's not just about the gold itself.
Right. It could affect currency markets, geopolitical dynamics. It's all connected. So, as we keep digging into all of this, into the implications of this discovery, we have to, acknowledge the responsibilities. I mean, finding this much gold.
Yeah, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right?
Right. There are downsides, and we touched on this earlier, the sustainable mining practices, but I think we need to really unpack that a bit. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, okay. So sustainable mining, break it down for us. What are we talking about here?
Well, it's a whole approach, really. It's about minimizing the impact.
Impact on
The environment.
Yeah.
Social impacts, too. How mining affects people.
So it's not just let's dig up all the gold and leave a mess behind.
No, not at all. It's about finding that balance.
Balance between.
Economic growth, making money, and being good stewards of the environment.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture, but let's get into specifics. When we're talking deep earth mining, like at Wangu, what are the big environmental challenges?
Well, one of the biggest is land disturbance. The more you dig, the more space you need on the surface.
For all the equipment and everything.
Exactly. And that can lead to deforestation, habitat loss. You're disrupting ecosystems.
And that affects the people who live there too, right?
Absolutely. Displacing communities, that's a big concern. And it has to be handled really carefully, ethically.
So it sounds like the challenge is, how do we get these resources without destroying things, without upending people's lives?
Exactly. And that's where sustainable mining practices come in.
Okay, so let's talk solutions. What are some of the strategies they're using to, make this whole process less damaging?
Well, one that's really promising is underground mining.
Underground. So not those big open pit mines.
Right. It's about accessing the resources from below with minimal disruption to the surface.
How do they do that?
Technology, robotics, remote-controlled drilling. They even have underground conveyor systems to move the ore.
So instead of these giant scars on the landscape, you're basically creating like a network of tunnels.
Yeah, that's the general idea. It's not without its challenges, but it has some big advantages. Less land clearing, less visual impact, less noise pollution.
Wow. Are there any companies actually doing this successfully?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's a company in Sweden, Boliden. They have a mine that's completely automated. Almost nobody works underground. Everything's controlled remotely.
That's wild. It sounds like something out of a movie. So it seems like technology is, on the one hand, letting us find these deep earth resources, and on the other hand, helping us get them out in a less destructive way.
That's a great point. And as we go deeper, technology is going to be more and more important in minimizing the impact.
That's good to hear. But we can't forget about the other concern, right?
Yeah.
Groundwater contamination. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, that's a critical one. You're drilling deep. You're going to hit those aquifers.
And those are vital, right? Drinking water, irrigation.
Ecosystems depend on them. If those get contaminated with mining waste, it's a disaster.
So responsible waste management is key here. How do they handle that with these sustainable practices?
Well, a lot of it comes down to the tailings.
Yeah, you said.
That's the leftover rock and minerals after they've extracted the valuable stuff. And that stuff can be toxic. It can leach into the environment if it's not managed properly.
So what do?
They build these secure storage facilities, basically giant containment systems.
To keep the waste from escaping.
Exactly. They have to be engineered to incredibly high standards, impermeable liners, sophisticated drainage. It's a big deal.
And what about the water they use in the mining process itself?
Good question. They try to conserve as much as possible, reuse it, and the wastewater. They treat it, remove the contaminants before they discharge it or reuse it.
So they're trying to minimize how much fresh water they take and prevent pollution.
Yes, exactly. It's about creating a closed loop, using water as efficiently as possible.
Makes sense. Seems like a lot of thought goes into this.
There really does. And it's constantly evolving as technology gets better and we learn what works best.
Speaking of technology, I have to wonder about the energy use. I mean, drilling that deep, extracting the ore, that must take a ton of energy.
It does. Deep earth mining is definitely more energy intensive than the traditional surface mining.
And that has implications for climate change, right? Especially if they're using fossil fuels.
Right. But here's where technology comes in again. There's a big push towards electrifying mining operations.
So using things like solar and wind power.
Exactly. Instead of those diesel generators, which pollute the air and contribute to greenhouse gases, some mines are even being built with their own renewable energy systems.
That's amazing. So they're not even relying on the grid.
In some cases, yeah. It's about being more self-sufficient. And it makes economic sense, too.
Because renewable energy is getting cheaper.
Right. So it's good for the environment, good for the bottom line, good for the image of the company.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Okay, but I have one more question about the environmental stuff. What about releasing harmful things from underground? I mean, gases, minerals.
That's definitely something to be aware of. It depends on what you're mining, but for example, methane gas can be a problem.
Right, methane. Isn't that even worse for the climate than carbon dioxide?
It is. It's a really potent greenhouse gas.
So how do they prevent that from happening?
Monitoring. They have really sophisticated systems to detect things like methane.
So they're constantly checking.
Yeah. And if they find something, they have ways to capture it, dispose of it safely.
So for every problem, there's a solution.
Pretty much. And that's what's so exciting about this field. We keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and we're getting better all the time at doing it safely and sustainably.
I'm impressed, honestly. The level of innovation, the focus on responsibility, it's really something.
It's a big shift in the industry for sure. Sustainability is becoming more and more important. It's not an afterthought anymore. It's a core principle.
And that's a good thing. But before we move on, we need to talk about the human side of this. We've talked tech, we've talked environment, but mining affects people too.
Absolutely. We can't forget about that.
So when we're talking deep earth mining, especially in a place like Wangu, what are the social things we need to consider?
Well, one of the biggest potential benefits is jobs. These operations, they need a skilled workforce.
So not just people to operate the machinery, but people who can design it, maintain it.
Right. Engineers, technicians, data analysts, all those kinds of jobs. And those are good paying jobs.
That can make a big difference for a community. But there are downsides too, right?
Yeah. One concern is displacement. If they build a mine where people are already living, those people might have to relocate.
And that can disrupt their lives, their culture.
It's a serious issue. And that's why it's so important to involve the communities from the very beginning.
So open communication, transparency,
Yeah.
making sure their concerns are heard.
Exactly. It's about building trust, showing them that the company is committed to their well-being.
And that takes more than just words, right?
Absolutely. It means hiring locally, providing training, investing in community development projects.
So it's a partnership, not just a company coming in and taking what they want.
Exactly. The company's success depends on the community's well-being. It's all connected.
That's a really important point. And it seems like the industry is starting to understand that.
Yeah, there's definitely a growing awareness of social responsibility.
And that's being driven by a lot of things, right? Investors, consumers, government regulations.
All of that. And it's a good thing. Companies are starting to realize that their actions have a ripple effect. They have a responsibility to do things right.
That's encouraging to hear. Okay, this has been a really eye-opening conversation. We've covered so much, the technology, the environment, now the social side of things. And I'm left thinking about how complex this all is.
It really is. And it's a reminder that everything's connected. The decisions we make, they have consequences. And we need to think about those consequences for people, for the planet.
Well said. But before we wrap up this part, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. We've talked a lot about the amazing things technology can do. But what about the human cost of that progress?
That's a crucial question. As mining becomes more automated, what happens to the workers? How do we make sure that everyone benefits from these changes? That's something we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back, everyone. We've been on this deep dive exploring the Wangu gold field and the future of deep earth mining.
And it's been quite a journey, lots to unpack.
Yeah. We've talked about the incredible technology, the environmental challenges, the social impacts. But in part 2, we left off with this big question. What happens to the workforce as mining becomes more automated?
Right. That's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
And it's a question we have to address because this is a huge shift in the industry. So let's dive in. How do we make sure this transition benefits everyone? How do we avoid leaving people behind?
Well, I think the key is preparing people.
Preparing them for what?
For a different kind of mining industry, one where technology plays a much bigger role. We need to focus on education, training, and adaptability.
So we need to equip people with the right skills
Exactly. Skills that are relevant to this new landscape. We can't just train people for the jobs of the past, the jobs that are going to be, automated away.
So instead of teaching someone how to operate a giant drill,
You teach them how to program that drill or how to maintain the robots that are doing the drilling.
how to be the brains behind the operation.
Yes, we need people who understand robotics, data analytics, artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Those are the fields that are going to be in demand.
It's about empowering workers, giving them the tools to not just survive, but to thrive in this new world.
Right. It's about collaboration, not competition. Humans and machines working together.
And we need to start thinking about this early, right? This isn't just about retraining existing workers. It's about preparing future generations.
Absolutely. We need to be integrating STEM education into schools, getting kids excited about these fields, because the jobs of tomorrow, they're going to look very different from the jobs of today.
So it's about planting the seeds for a future workforce that's tech-savvy, adaptable, resilient.
Exactly. And, as certain tasks become automated, that opens up new opportunities in other areas.
Right, so it's not just about job losses, it's about job shifts.
Yeah.
What are some of the emerging fields in mining that we should be paying attention to?
Well, one area with huge potential is environmental remediation and restoration.
So cleaning up the messes that mining has made.
Not just cleaning up, but actually restoring ecosystems, making things better than they were before. And as we become more aware of the environmental impacts of mining, that demand for remediation is only going to grow.
So the problems we've created could actually lead to new solutions, new jobs.
Exactly. And these are jobs that are good for the planet, good for the community.
That's a nice thought. It's not all doom and gloom.
No, not at all. There are lots of reasons to be optimistic. Another field that's really taking off is data analytics.
Data analytics. So mining is getting all data-driven now.
It is. There's so much data being generated from the drilling, the sensors, the robots, and we need people who can make sense of it all.
So we need the brawn, but we also need the brains.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Mining is becoming a much more knowledge-based industry.
And it's not just about the technical skills, right?
No, the soft skills are just as important. Communication, collaboration, problem-solving, critical thinking.
Because in a world where things are changing so fast, you need to be able to adapt, to learn new things, to think on your feet.
That's it. We need to move away from that old model where you learn one skill and do that same job for 40 years. The future is about continuous learning.
It's about being flexible, being curious, being open to new possibilities. It's about embracing change, really.
And that's something we all need to be thinking about, not just in the mining industry, but in every industry. Because the future of work is, well, it's unpredictable.
That's a great point. And it takes all of us working together to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
Industry, government, educational institutions.
Absolutely. We need a system that supports workers, that helps them adapt and thrive in this new world.
Well, this has been an incredible conversation. We started with this massive gold discovery in China, and we've ended up talking about the future of work, the future of humanity, really.
It all connects, doesn't it? The choices we make today, they have consequences for tomorrow, and it's our responsibility to make those choices wisely.
Well said. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the takeaway is this. As we venture deeper into the earth, we need to also venture deeper into ourselves. We need to ask the tough questions, the ethical questions, the human questions. Because technology can be a powerful tool, but it's up to us to use it for good.
To create a future where everyone benefits, a future that's sustainable, equitable, and just.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope you found it enlightening. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep digging deeper.